We ended up selling out about 20 bags in the first 48 hours over Easter, and that was through social media.
My name's Sasha, and I've helped over 2,000 founders build and grow profitable e-commerce businesses. And I'm joined today by Haman Bamba, our head coach of Ecom Capital. We're joined by a really valued member of our community, Steve, who's the founder of Voortrekka, a company that we helped to launch within the last 6 to 9 months.
But yeah, essentially I joined up with no idea about what a product would be, what the process looked like.
We're going to be breaking down Steve's kind of path from zero to over $70,000 a month in the first 2 to 3 months of launching his business.
People say, what's your secret, Steve? Why are you doing so well at the minute? And I'm like...
And then we're actually going to do a bit of a coaching or business strategy session for Steve.
Your AOV, you can make 20% more by doing an upsell. So that's the first thing that I want you to look at in terms of your business.
Very possible through manipulating of your price and looking at like what that sweet spot is where your ROAS might drop 1 or 2 points, but you add like double the net profit and you're like, oh my God. Steve, great to have you here, brother. Always a pleasure to connect with you. And thanks for spending some time with us today.
Oh, it's a privilege to be here. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
Awesome, bro. Tell us a little bit about the backstory in terms of yourself before you started the brand. What was kind of going on in and around your environment, in and around your life before you actually kicked off?
Yeah, no worries. So I'd been in the Australian Army, so the Australian Defence Force for close to 20 years. So joined up pretty much out of school, straight into Duntroon, became an officer, and then graduated from the Royal Military College and got commissioned as a lieutenant. And then you bump through a bunch of different postings, obviously, over your career. So I was a RAME officer, which is the Royal Australian Electrical and Mechanical Engineers. So in charge of all the maintenance and they do everything from radios to instruments to night vision goggles to weapons to vehicles. And what my role was is I was a workshop commander essentially when I was very junior, looking after, maybe 50 guys that are all tradesmen. So that was my role initially. I went up to a unit called 57 RAR, which is an infantry mechanized unit. So I started getting involved more in the armored vehicle side. And then I sort of forged myself a career staying with armored vehicles, so multiple postings to armored units. So the other kind of units I was at was 2nd 14th Light Horse Regiment, which is Queensland Mounted Infantry, which is armored vehicles, 2 Cav, which is armored vehicles, and 1st Armored Regiment. I was an OC at 2 of those units as well. So as you get a little bit higher up, you're not just looking after the workshop, you start looking after all the assets under logistics. So transport, medics, all the storage of ammunition, fuel, water, all that kind of thing. So a pretty cool career, at the end, you sort of I culminated with, maybe 200 people working for me, supporting a regiment. But I wasn't supposed to really stay at those first line units all my career. It was a bit unusual. So I was actually qualified in armoured vehicles. So I'd go into the battle and fight the battle alongside the guys. I deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. So really, really cool career. But it sort of set me up well for what we're going to be talking about, because being a logistician, you really have to be a good planner and thinking about it. So that was my foundation. My wife, though, she's been a nurse originally from South Africa, hence the name Voortrekka. That's a Afrikaans word, which we can get into as well if you want to unpack that. But she has been a nurse for a long time, and obviously towards the end of her career, a bit tired from nursing. And we got to a point where I'd retired a couple of years ago. We bought a farm. On the farm, building, looking after the farm, that kind of thing. That allowed me to be present and be back in the life of my wife and my daughter's life, because I was always away. Most of the time in the military, on average, I'd be away 6 months of the year.
Wow.
At one point, I did a 13-month stint away from them. Yeah, and that was just when the little one was, she was only 1 year old, I think. So, you miss out on a lot of, their life and being around, being present. I think being in the army is not so hard on the actual, the soldiers. It's actually hard on the families.
So true. So true. Mm.
Yeah. So anyway, we got to that point. Just the last couple of years, I've been retired. My wife allowed her to go back into the workforce and really get after her career, being a manager and quite senior in nursing. But she just got a bit burnt out. And towards the end of last year, she sort of said to me, I just can't do this anymore. Something's going to break, and we need to start thinking about what our exit strategy is from that part of our life. So what we ended up doing, and I joke about this, I've been on a couple of interviews now. I'm pretty sure I said e-commerce too many times in front of my phone. and the next thing I know, Sasha Carabutt's popping up.
Appeared
Yeah, it was
out
like
of nowhere.
Ecom,
Hey, Sasha.
And anyway, I was intrigued. I was like, what, this guy is so captivating. What is this guy telling me? And what you were doing was working, because you were getting that message out of what a life of e-com could look like for people. And instead of us going and buying a cafe or, trying to change careers at sort of this point in our life, we thought, why don't we look into this in a bit more detail? And that's when we got on a call with Adnan from the sales team.
Yeah. And so did you, like when you came in and you joined initially, I know that there was some, changes and bits and pieces in relation to product. Like you didn't really know exactly like what you were going to sell to begin with. Like you were kind of like, let's just figure this out. I think that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, this is the messaging that you put out there, which is you don't have to have an idea. You don't have to have a plan. You don't have to have experience. I mean, the way I try and think of the training that you've provided is it's almost at, tertiary university level. Like it's like a marketing course, and you go in, I guess like most things, with the course, you don't really know the outcome of it. You start learning and you go through the process. That's what it really got me captivated about doing this. I was investing more than, the idea of maybe earning money one day. I was actually investing in myself. That's how Adnan got me. He said, are you not worth investing in yourself? And I said, I actually am. I want to get better. I want to learn some new skills. One of the things I was prepared to do was, if I was potentially not successful, which, I think it's pretty hard to not be successful. If you put in the work, you're going to be successful. But the big thing was, I thought if I could even just learn and actually pass that on to my daughter, her future is going to be in a digital world, and ours hasn't been. So it was an upskill for me. But I came in, no idea, no product, no idea about business, no idea about e-commerce.
So you had no experience. So if I was to think about it, no experience at all, and really discovering everything.
Yeah, I mean, I know what my worth was, and I know that I've got a lot to give, and I think a lot of that shines through in what I'm doing in e-commerce. But yeah, essentially, I joined up with no idea about what a product would be, what e-commerce looks like, what the process looked like, and I've learned all of that in the course that I've been in.
Yeah, but I think also it's like a strategy, from a strategy perspective, when you have one direction. And you're not like we talked about this in the past in terms of distraction. You have one direction, you're learning from one source. That's just going to give you a much more reliable outcome. That's how I think about it. So it's really good that you're coming in, looking to learn, and you're implementing exactly the strategy. And on top of obviously all the work you did, you mentioned the background in military, you're very much driven, and I would say you have that consistency, and that's very hard to beat. And you're very dangerous in business, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, we did this obviously as a partnership, my wife and I, and it was to get her out of what she's doing. So I'm really more, assisting. It has changed a little bit more than that, because she really didn't have a lot of capacity. So I've ended up trying to obviously carry that load for us as a partnership. And what we've sort of seen is, when you start throwing yourself into things, you start becoming the face of the brand and the face of the customer service and all that. So I'm definitely carrying that. And we're not in a position yet where she's, not nursing. We're getting closer. But the idea is that she would come into the business and be a big part of that as well, and help take it that next step.
What's the kind of impression of, like, how has your wife's opinion of what you have been doing changed? Because I imagine when you first started, she would have been like, okay, yeah, I kind of understand it, but like over the past 6-9 months, in terms of like what she initially saw you working, not really seeing much come out of it like to begin with, and then like what it's changed into now, like how has like her experience or her maybe like trust in like what you're doing, has that changed? Has that like evolved? Has that shifted at all?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, initially we wanted to do it together, realized she had no capacity. So it started being me. And, I'm pretty tenacious. I want to succeed and I want to do things right. So I go to the next level a little bit as well at times. And she's just blown away. She's blown away by my commitment and, and the way that Ecom Capital, the way that Ecom Capital invests back into the client as well. She's just, couldn't believe how good a decision it was to join up, and how successful we are only because we've been paired with you guys. Do you know what I mean? It's not, I've bought a lot of, that tenacious sort of way and, really good planner and I'm not trying to boast about myself, but I've got attributes that work really well in e-commerce. But we both, are so thankful of the process that you provide and the course provides. I say to people, because I do have a little bit of, peer support and that kind of thing. And Ecom Capital is more than a course, it's a community. So, lots of contacts throughout the community. And the biggest thing I say to people is it's all laid out. Like there is no secrets. People say, what's your secret, Steve? Why are you doing so well at the minute? And I'm like, there is no secret. So Heyman and Sasha provide all of the guidance and all of the steps. You just got to do the work. There's no shortcuts to success. So that is the secret. Go and do the hard work.
What's the like? Is there any perhaps like if you think back to Steve at the start and say for example if you take the success you've had so far, obviously we're going to scale that a lot further and there's going to be a lot more in the future. But if you take like the success you've had so far and then you maybe like speak with like this current Steve and kind of maybe give the starting off Steve a couple of key things that maybe you would advise him to do, or it's like, okay, dude, like definitely do this, definitely stick to this. Obviously, aside from like your attitude towards being tenacious, like are there any other key things that you're like, these are a few of like the maybe characteristics that you implemented through that kind of earlier stage where it was like a little bit kind of unsure or unstable to begin with that probably helped you to fast track? Are there any things that come to mind?
Yeah, so it's almost like what would I even say to myself or say to others? But yeah, I think some of the messaging that I give to people is invest in the community. But this is the difference, I think, between Ecom Capital and, I mean, I don't even really know about many other training platforms. I didn't investigate them. I really did invest in you guys and believed in what you were telling me, and it's true. But I think it would be about also networking with others, like trying to learn from others. So I came to one of your events in February, and the big, I remember you saying first day, think about what you want to take away from this event. And I thought that I was going to, maybe take away the biggest things I was going to take away were the learning points or the you have to do this or that. I actually ended up deciding that I wanted to take away some relationships with people in the room. And I've used that the whole way through the last sort of 6 months or more to help build my confidence, what I'm doing by talking to others. Not only does Ecom Capital obviously provide a great coaching and support network through professionals, I think that the journey that you go on with peers is also really important, because I remember you saying to me at that conference, like, Ecom can be lonely. And I think before that, I was actually doing it on my own and I was feeling lonely. And at times, when something doesn't go your way, you actually get down. But what I did after that point was go, okay, that day I'm going to get down. It's instead of throwing the laptop closed and saying, oh, I'm going to go for a walk or whatever, I actually get on a phone to one of my peers and say, hey, I'm having a tough time. How are you going? Half the time I end up helping them with whatever problem they've got. Makes me feel better, makes me re-engaged. I'd also say, and this is a big one, Heyman always tells me, get on the calls, be consistent. I tell you, you get on one of the calls with any of the coaches and all of a sudden it just invigorates a fire again. So, yeah, I think engaging in the community, engaging with, the program are the two big key things, that I would always promote and say that to myself, my earlier self, just do that and you'll be on the right path.
Yeah, I love it. I want to go a little bit into, and Hamid, after this, I'd like you to have some inputs maybe on some questions or bits and pieces that you've also done or worked with Steve on. But I think one thing that that would be really cool is if you could perhaps just share a little bit about what you've come to call the Pirate campaign, or a little bit around that, mainly just because I think it's such like a exemplary, I guess, like demonstration of figure it out along the way. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Don't wait till you have all the answers. Don't wait for if this then kind of attitude. So can we just break that down a little bit in terms of what you did, how you did that thing, and also particularly like you know, starting to post content and not being like the content guy, you know what I mean? Not being like uber confident in front of the camera. Like, I just want to kind of break that down a little bit because I think it's really valuable and I think people need to hear that. So yeah, if you could talk a little bit to that.
Yeah. So just going back a little bit towards the start of the year, that's where this journey sort of started. I joined in November. By January, I had some samples and a product. We're doing a camping bag. It's a really bespoke sort of design duffle bag, redefined duffle bag. So, you select the product, you've got your niche, you've got all the avatar, you start going on this journey. I hit a stumbling block when Chinese New Year came around, though, because I didn't realize that was a big thing. And essentially China turned off the Wi-Fi for about 5 weeks and don't answer the mail. So, I was in this situation of going, well, what do I do? I've got these samples. I don't know anything about, I guess, social media. What can I do? I can't really push forward with ordering things or changing things. So what can I do? And some of the big messages we got obviously out of February as well was like, be tenacious, just keep pushing forward no matter what. So I started, I guess, thinking, well, I've got the sample. I need to start getting comfortable with social media. And like I said, I didn't want to be the face. I didn't have Instagram. I didn't know what a TikTok was. And literally back early on in the year, I had to download these platforms and start exposing myself to it. My sister's quite high up in social media as well. So as I started producing some videos, she just started saying how badly I was doing it. Not what I could be doing better because she was so busy, just how badly I was doing. And it wasn't great for the confidence, but I sort of started going, okay, I know that it's not great. I've got to keep learning. So you just start fast tracking. So sorry if I've gotten off track, but I started going, well, I have to get comfortable with social media because I have to at least, I remember talking to Naira at one point and she goes, just push it out into your social media group, what you're doing and that. And I'm like, I've got 2 followers. Like, no one can see me. And she's like, you just got to start. And so we did. Like, started getting, just this little bit of traction of, people following you or I guess being brand aware. And what we did in about April, it was we launched this, as I say, a pirate campaign. I'd sort of asked around. I don't know if you remember, Heyman, but I asked you, should I do a pre-sale? And you said no. And I did get on a call with you, Sasha. I said, should I do a pre-sale? And you went, I don't really want to endorse that. Like, I'm not quite sure where you're at the moment. And I went, okay. I'm getting a lot of no's. And I'm like, what else can I do? Like, I couldn't progress much because I'd sort of been stuck in this limbo period. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to try and do something. I didn't have a logo or my brand development yet. I didn't have a website. I literally rang up some support in Ecom Capital. You guys were all on leave at Easter, and I started messaging Jem, one of our assistants in there, and she I said, how could I didn't want people to send money to my bank account because I thought it was a bit wrong. I thought I need a platform. So I started asking and, Chat GPT and Googling. Yeah. Anyway, I realized that I could do a Stripe link. Now, all I could do was register for a Stripe link. It literally was just a landing page. I had 140 characters, 1 picture, and that was all that Stripe link was. But it allowed people to put in their credit card details and pay. So I thought, well, that's sort of legitimate. Then I went on social media. And I started going, okay, I'm going to do this launch. And I did it, right? And the whole idea about it was not to try and get money to, get my brand and my product up and running. I actually wanted to do it just to validate. I had this idea. I tried to solve a customer's problem with my product. I just didn't know if anyone wanted it. So by doing this, road campaign, a little bit against Sasha, a little bit against Heyman's direction, what I ended up doing was using that organic social media platform and my little 1 Stripe link with a dodgy URL that I backdoored the name. We ended up selling out about 20 bags in the first 48 hours over Easter. And that was just through social media.
I remember. You joined my call and it was like, I did everything without a website. I was like, that's dangerous. No website, just a Stripe link, and you make money. And that's actually like I was still like looking at the process itself you did, and I mention this all the time. We need data, and you need to be more looking to do those things that are a little bit not necessarily, let's say, planned, because you're gonna get data fast, and you can also push and see if it doesn't work. There's no loss, and if it does, then you get some data. So when you mentioned this, and you mentioned you're getting sales without a website, like I've never seen this before, just to be completely transparent. So like running a business without the website, that's in ecom, it's very rare, particularly with conversion rates and then so on. But seeing that, I've seen already in you the potential of getting to the million, because it's almost like you're doing the things and you're trying to maneuver strategies to actually get moving. So it's really amazing.
Yeah, I remember telling you about it, and Heyman said, I said, I've just launched over the weekend. We've sold about 25 bags or whatever, and he said, yeah, like someone's signed up to your email. I said, no, we've sold it, and he goes, what, like $10 a bag, just as a commitment? I said, no, I've actually sold each bag for $250. He said, what? And that, what it did, because Heyman is very analytical, and he's looking at the data, and because there wasn't a way to capture that data, I guess for me the data was that people were interested. So what it let me do was it allowed me to just straight away go and purchase that first order, because I'd validated, I guess, the idea, and that was the outcome that I was looking for. Within, I think, 3 or 4 weeks, I then ordered another batch, and then what we ended up doing was actually selling out of that first order before it even arrived. So,
yeah, I think it's a great kind of like just example of what you mentioned there in terms of I think people like overthink how many things they need to have done, or what needs to happen, or I need to have my emails, I need to have my, I'm not sure, pretty landing pages and all those types of things. But I think below that, like what that says to me is like the time and the energy and the effort you put into developing a really good product really is the main driver of that. Like if say, for example, you spun up some random crap, right, and you were like, hey, like, buy my shit on Instagram with a Stripe link, I promise you no one would have bought. And so I think it's like, it's testament to, the work that you put into that product side of being like, let's actually, solve something that's unique. Let's do it in a different way. I've had this issue and I'm constantly having this issue. How could I alleviate that for more people than just me and create this product that was, what ended up being the bag? And so I think, like if I look at it, I'm like, a lot of marketing becomes a lot easier when we have, identified particular like unique solutions or strategies as far as like how we can kind of solve a problem in a different way. Because then it's like I was speaking with Reese Ryan, I think it is, at one of the workshops we had recently, and fascinating because he also spent probably 5 years developing this like microbe strain for dogs, right? That's like it helps their fur. It like does all these amazing things for their gut health and all these things. And it was fascinating because we did this workshop around like strategy or positioning in the marketplace, or USPs, or like developing like uniqueness. And because of the work that he's put into the product, it's so much easier because he's like, we are the only product of this kind. Like we have this certification from this university, and they've done 600, double-blind studies about this. And so it's like, it just flies because like you put the work in. And so I think it's more like this strategy is I would say, a really good demonstration of like, don't overthink it, just take the damn action. However, it's like if you're selling like random widget from AliExpress and you're taking the same approach, it's like, I could not imagine it's going to go the same way, and you're going to have some massive surge in sales. So I think it's just a really good kind of highlight to be like that work at the start and that foundational kind of like, research that you did around developing the product. I remember at the event in February, like you were walking around with that little iPad being like, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? And I'm like, hey, look, it worked out fantastically. And it really speaks to people in that market who have that same kind of pain point as what you had. Yeah.
yeah. No, it's just people go, oh, were you lucky? No, I did all that hard work at the start, and guess where all of that work is presented to you? In Ecom Capital course, in the actual course. So all I did was I applied all the lessons that you teach to then come up with an idea to identify a pain point and solve it with a smart, unique product. So yeah, you're dead right. The other part though, there was a second part to it, I feel. and a lot of it was about the customer engagement.
Mm.
I nearly spoke to, I'm nearly still speaking to nearly every customer. And the reason why is just because I'm taking an approach of, customers are our heroes, because without customers, you don't have a business anyway. But the thing is that what I owe them is trying to get them the best quality, the best customer service, the best experience, the best follow-up, the best, marketing, emails, whatever I can do needs to be the best because that's what they deserve. So I try and embrace the customer every day. Every person that actually buys a bag from me at the moment actually gets a personalized video message to them to say, I appreciate you and, I value you. So I also feel that the way that you can go about it is not be just a faceless brand, actually engage with the people and, like with them, treat them as people and, validate them by if they've got a problem, listen to them. So, that's another part of that ingredients, I believe.
I think that is tremendously underrated, and people talk about it with their customer satisfaction or their customer obsessed, all of that language that a lot of brands promote and talk about, but the actual doing of it and not just doing it, but taking it to that nth degree of I'm not just going to do it. I'm going to video message, phone call, personal text, personal update. And I think too many founders, they get roped up into almost trying to, just focus on the cash or focus on the money or be this mercenary type thing where they're like, oh, my ads aren't working. No effing people are buying. I need to get more content. I need to get more sales. I need to fill up my bank account. And it's you're forgetting what the point of this is. You know what I mean? You're creating a solution for people to positively impact their life. And when you're really close to that, you make better decisions as a founder because you're no, it's for these people. And I know you mentioned previously some of your customers have waited 12 weeks, ridiculous periods of time. And it's
12 months.
Ridiculous periods of time. And so it's that would have never happened if you were just sitting there and you just, ripped some money off the internet. You didn't say anything. You sent 2 random faceless emails, and then you were you'll get your product soon. Update you soon. But it's they're willing to wait with you. They're willing to go on the journey with you. They're willing to be your brand evangelist and be I'm in your corner, Steve. Let's go. So I think that's probably one of the overarching probably pillars that anyone listening can take to a higher degree. Serve your customers better. I love the model that I love around this is do the unscalable stuff. Send those personal video messages, send those personal text messages, randomly call people, video call people, meet up with people. There's another client of ours in Rockhampton, and he, when he sells in the local area, in the community, he takes the product and he drives it and personally delivers it to their home, videos the whole thing. Here's your watch. I've literally I'm this is insane. You know what I mean? But the experience when they open the door and they see him there with this watch, they're just wait, what? You're the owner of the company? You're dropping off this watch for me? I can't even this is insane. And so I think in the age that we're in right now where everything's so digital, it's so transactional, it's so disconnected, brands can absolutely crush if they lean more into what you just mentioned there and actually obsess with the customer, their experience, creating these meaningful connections. There's just so much value in it. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, even my very first customer that bought back in that pirate campaign, I made him my VVIP. So, all of my guys are VIPs, but he was the very first that believed in me, had a little bit of a presence on YouTube and that kind of thing. So it was obviously a good pairing as well because he helped promote it a little bit more in those early stages. I think he says to me that he rang 8 friends and said, "You will buy this, otherwise I'm no longer your friend."
That's a strong commitment. Hey.
Yeah, just a real advocate, and he just he sort of got behind me because I'm a veteran, because I'm a small business owner. He just said, "Listen, we should be getting behind more people like you," and that really helped. But what I did for him was I made sure that every step of the way, if I got a photo from a supplier or I was going to make a business decision, I actually included him in that process. Not because, I was worried about making a decision. I wanted him to go on that journey with me. And I felt that was really powerful as well. He was the first to get the bag. He was the first to get a photo. He was the first to get all these things. And that's actually turned into a great friendship, and that's now happened with, 10s, 20s. There's lots of people that I've done that with. I've got my phone is filled up with people's names because I've got, this connection with customers. And I think that that's also good as well, because I say to people, try and choose something that you actually want to get into bed with for the next 5 years. Something that you enjoy. Camping is something that we love as a family, and it's a passion. So, and what I didn't know was how good that community is, in my niche. And so I'm just embracing that as well. I'm at an event next year that I'm going to, for a weekend where all these campers and YouTubers are going to be at. Like, I would never have done that if I hadn't have gone on this journey.
I think it's also important to highlight, like, say, for example, if you wound back to the start, I don't suppose you would have, number one, assumed that you would be doing the things that you're doing now, as far as like video messages, customer support, emails, creating content, being like I don't think you would have been like, oh yeah, that's cool. In 6 months, I'm going to be kind of the face of the brand. I'll be like, speaking to customers. Like I don't think that would have been clear to you. And I also don't think that you potentially would have known that you would have enjoyed it this much. Does that make sense? It's like you've figured out these things that you're like, wow, I'm going to have to do these things. Oh, you know what? It's actually pretty epic. I'm actually having, you know what I mean? It's like it's become more clear to you as the company's grown and you've started doing these things naturally. And then now you're actually like, oh, there's something here. You know what I mean? There's something going on here and I really like it, and customers are responding really well to it. So I think that the reason I wanted to highlight that is because it's like you can't always see the whole entire journey from the start, but it's like you just need to kind of work your way through that path and just see around the next corner and then around the next corner. And as you continue to move through the journey, it continues to get opened up to you and you're like, okay, got it. Oh, this is the next step. Oh, this is the next step. And it seems like that's very much what's happened here. Yeah.
And also just like listening to your coaches as well, like believing in the process. One of the biggest things I think Heyman sometimes tells people is, just listen to me. You don't like, not in a mean way, but if you listen to the guidance, then you will go on the right path. Some people get the shiny object syndrome and start diverting really easily and really quickly. And that's the, the secret as well. Just believe in the process, do what the training tells you to do the work, success will come.
Yeah, I know we talked about this in the past, but maybe we can look at a little bit some of your business like numbers just to go into more positioning for you in terms of just the next phase. What is like right now, if I was to look at it, you have 3 components in your e-commerce. You have the AOV, which is your average order value. You have your cost per click, which is when you do the media buying, and then you have the conversion rate, which is of your store. What area do you feel like you need to push more if I was to just think about prioritization?
I think it's still just for me the thing that I struggle the most with is probably the creatives and inputting into that, because obviously you don't get those metrics if you don't have the right creatives. So it's more about just trying to make sure you have all the foundation pieces to then go into there. So yeah.
But I'm curious about what is right now your ROAS on average? Like what return on ad spend you have?
Yeah, the ROAS, obviously, as we introduce different creatives, they do different things. I know that Steve, my ad manager, a great man that he is, the master coach, the other day we had 120 ROAS on one of the ads, which is just crazy, and we were celebrating that for a moment. But no, I think it's anywhere between 5 to 10. Probably more average is around that 8 ROAS, which is quite strong.
Yeah, so your problem is probably not creatives, if I was to think about it. You already have a good structure. You need to do it more. I would actually think about 2 things, and we talked about this in the past. Your AOV. You can make 20% more by selling, like by doing an upsell. So that's the first thing that I want you to look at in terms of your business, because I've seen many times entrepreneurs look at different things and they think, hey, I'm not good with creatives. You have 10 ROAS, 5 to 10, you're good. You just need to do more of it and keep doing what you're doing. But probably you should tackle control of your business, in my opinion, would be the AOV push, which I think you can get 20% extra for your customers that you mentioned. They really love your product. So you can really think about a product like that could complement yours, and you can have this as a post-purchase or pre-purchase, and that can give you 10, 20%. Think about 10, 20% more money in profit in your account right away. I think
Would
that's
that
the first thing you should look at.
That's introducing something like I did have a plan for my bag. I future-proofed my bag a little bit where we have these Velcro on and off gear bags and toiletry bag, and they're sort of small, like a small pencil case sort of size. But that area was always earmarked for a bespoke toiletry bag to go in there. Obviously, it's a lower cost purchase. It's not going to cost as much to purchase as the bag, but it's an add-on. It complements it. Would that be something that you'd be recommending?
Absolutely. Think about something that's not expensive, that you can test the same way you tested your own idea with your product. That can be right away extra money in your business, and it's very complementary. And I would actually not go into something where you have a high MOQ. You should really tackle something where it's very low MOQ, and it should be complementary. So what you mentioned right now would be ideal. The moment they purchase, they see it in the post-purchase. Think about this. If 1 out of 5 would take this, let's say post-purchase, and let's say it's $100 in terms of price, that's a $20 increase in your AOV right away. 1 out of 5, $20 up. So you're making just more money and you can compete more in terms of the media buying. If you do this, you're going to get more returns in your business right away.
Right.
I would also strongly look at, so with it's like, so if I look at the numbers at the moment, Steve, like I would say the creative is not exactly like a blocker or a bottleneck or like your ad performance, which this is a really like strong position to be in, because most brands are the opposite, and their ROAS is like 2. And then the unit economics are challenging, but like you're in a position where you're at the opposite end and your ROAS is really quite high. So if I was you, I'd be looking at something of this design whereby on that post-purchase, I do one of two things. Post-purchase, people are coming through and buying. And I'm not sure if you're still doing this or if you're not doing this anymore. It would be very interesting to test. I can send you an app after this. And so on that post-purchase experience, if I was you, I would be calling them right away. Massive thank you. Tremendously grateful for your order. Tremendously excited for you to receive the product. Story, founder story, sell the vision. And then I would say to them, look, we've actually had so many people come back and buy for their friends. I'm just curious, while we're in this conversation, are there any people that you think might benefit or you think might also love the bag? We have this unique thing where if you buy another one for your friend, we give you this discount. And on top of that, we can actually pay you X, which is the acquisition cost, which might be $70, $50. And they're sitting there and they're like, yeah, my friend Jeff, he would love this bag. Can I get another one? And so in that moment, you've turned one sale into 2 sales. The customer's like, oh my God, I just made $60 or cash on that. And you just work out what that price point looks like. And then you build it out, obviously doing it human focused first. So you can test like the principles, you test if it works, you test how that whole process works, the price points, the mechanisms. And then once it scales up and you have good, strong velocity building there in terms of that referral, almost like affiliate system, then what you do is you set it up. Maybe there's a video that goes out post-purchase email that says the same thing as far as what you might say on the phone call initially, that turns that one purchase into 2, and then effectively you've got 240 or 250 into 500 or thereabouts, or even 450. I'm like, that disproportionately changes like your business and the gross profit margin that you're actually accumulating. The other, I'll send you the app afterwards in terms of what it is exactly. It literally tacks onto the checkout page and it says you can earn this right here. Select this link, send it to a friend, you get paid immediately. It's fantastic. And then the other thing I think also with those economics, as far as your ROAS versus your average order value, it also tells me that you're heavily underpriced. I think that simply by increasing your price 20%, like you might see your ROAS come down to, I'm not sure, 5 on average as opposed to 8. But what that, reduction of 3 points there is going to do to your bottom line is going to be so much more. Does that make sense? It's like, so what you're seeing is categorically above average returns on the ROAS. And so it's like, this isn't a creative focus or it isn't a kind of a content focus. For you to get 8 ROAS up to 10, very stupid to put time into that. For you to go and take your gross profit margin from 50 and get it up to 80, very possible through manipulating of your price and looking at what that sweet spot is, where your ROAS might drop 1 or 2 points, but you add double the net profit, and you're like, oh my God, You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's the focus for you at the moment. Like you've got a really strong kind of like front end. You're in a really unique position where you're supply constrained as opposed to demand constrained. And so I think price testing, higher prices immediately, and then looking at kind of those next opportunities for turning those one customers into two. Mainly, and the reason I'm focusing on that as well is like most people, I probably wouldn't advise that. I'd just do price test, but because of the customer obsessed nature that you have to people, and you're already making the contacts, sending the videos, doing those things, and so it just very much organically becomes a look. I'm not sure if this is of any interest. I'm just shooting it out here because we've had, out of 200 customers, we've had like however many have come back and purchased and bought for friends or asked for friends. So I'm just going to put it out there. If you have some friends, you can earn $60. I'm also going to give you a discount of X. Like here's the link, and people are like, oh my God, like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy that. I know one of my mates, I'd love to buy one of those things for him. Boom. And so you literally can like double your business by doing no further front end marketing, by just getting more out of those exact same customers. And you're already having the conversations, you're already doing the things. It's just adding a little piece to that conversation around, do you think that maybe this could be interesting? Or do you think that, and it's like 1 in 3 say yes, right? And you've just added another like $70, $80 to your average order value immediately, with no additional spend, no additional cost whatsoever, and it goes straight to your bottom line. So those are two things that I think are very like timely based on the economics of the business at the moment. Yeah.
No, thank you so much. That's so valuable.
And think about one thing that I was going to say, just like maybe you can test this. Obviously, I think Sasha like recommendation is really strong, but one thing I would do would be, how can you get our product for free? That would be how I would introduce this offer post-purchase. Do you want to get it for free? To get it for free, you should recommend, say, X amount of people. We'll get you the unit for free. So it can be literally, they just purchase, tell them, do you want to get it for free? They're going to be more interested in getting the product for free. They just paid for it, literally. And it's going to be, you should recommend X amount, then you should look at your AOV in terms of that. That's going to be a strong structure.
Well, it's like refer 4 people if it's $60 per each referral fee, and, get all of your cash refunded. And you kind of gamify it so people are like, oh my God. And like you've found, Steve, with the camping community, they're very like, passionate people. They all support each other. It's very kind of like, there's no like, oh, this is my special product. No one can have this product. It's like, oh, dude, this is sick. Where'd you get that freaking mug from? Oh my God, that's an epic, like esky cooler. Like how can, you know what I mean? It's like everyone wants to share things, and that's also how you operate. So I think that would be tremendously valuable from a just increasing actual cash accumulation. Super, super strong. Yeah.
I love it. And this is why we're in Ecom Capital. Such valuable information. So thank you.
Yeah. No, very cool. And then I think it's going to be a really interesting time for you, especially in relation to like this 100,000 per month, and then beyond that, because it's like some of the I think it's like at this current moment right now, it's like I would be focusing if I was you on as much kind of like not exploiting, but just like using as efficiently as possible the ad spend and the resources that you can actually like put into the system to maximize the return. So just like really wringing that towel dry. And what that's going to do is I want you to really fight and avoid the bias or the kind of the idea that it's like, oh, I must expand quicker. Oh, I must like get a warehouse. Oh, I must like hire a VA. Oh, I must like get new products. Does that make sense? It's like this period of the next maybe like 3 months type thing. I really want you to obsess on like, let me proof out the most profitable model that consistently performs. It's like, I do these ads, I send it to this landing page, we do this post-purchase, I do it at this timing with this sequence, and we've run it for 2 to 3 months, and it's like, this is just a profit machine, right? And then with like, because the opposite of this that I see so many founders do is they have 1 month of like good performance that might be some seasonality, and then they go, that's it. More stock, more products, warehouse, let's go, team, let's rock and roll. Cost base increases massively. And then once you increase that cost base, it's very hard to rip them out. You know what I mean? It's like It's so much easier to add than it is to subtract. And so it's like, if you fight that kind of maybe pull, and you're really good with this from what I've seen, because you get in there and do it yourself, fight that pull to be like, oh, let's add. Oh, I need to see if I can get a social media person. Oh, I need to do this. It's like focus on really systems and processes and the boring, unsexy stuff. You know what I mean? There's nothing sexy about you like sitting there and just like obsessing over like business metrics for 3 months. It's pretty mundane, mind-numbing work. But in the next like 6 months, you'll be like, oh my goodness, we have this insanely scalable machine. And I can see, even if I was to hire, I don't know, 4 people and pay $20,000 a month of salaries, like I'm so good. You know what I'm saying? Like you can see how that's going to extrapolate forward, and you're in a really sound, like protected business model that's backed by good evidence and really strong unit economics. So then you can start adding strategically these, whether it's people on the team, whether it's additional product lines, into something that's like built to scale, as opposed to a couple of months good performance. Let's go and add a whole bunch of shit. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
Yes, and if I was to give you one other thing, and we talked about this, you need to unlock some things in your business to be scalable. So we talked about right now, you look at cash flow, and Sasha mentioned this in some of the ads. But I would look at using, for example, American Express to unlock that levels of let's say, spend that you need. That's the first thing. You need a liquid business. Also, I know that you're going to be using our recommendation for suppliers that you actually met in the event, which was amazing. That supply chain that's going to be much faster, much scalable, and the lead time is lower. That should be your priority. So you have a big limitation that we talked about, lead time. If I have a business that's doing 50% profit, but the lead time is a year, versus a business that does 10% profit, but the lead time is a month, they make more, because 10% multiply that by 12, you just made more money. And even if the margins are higher, they still don't gain because of the lead time. So I want you to really get that done in terms of, testing, because you're already doing it, but push that structure as fast as possible so that you have no risk, but you have a fast, let's say, delivery to your customers. And on top of this, unlock the cash for the media buying. If you unlock the cash for media buying, you have a business that's very fluid. And as Sasha mentioned, very profitable. You're going to be just scaling. It's going to be very easy. Everyone would look at you and be like, hey, wow, how are you doing it? It's just you're doing the things, right?
Yeah. No, I'm onto those ones as well straight away.
That's very good. I think the focus there in terms of like, especially in relation to whether it's the upsell, whether it's the referral, whether it's the back end, the objective there, and just so like this is really clear as well, Steve. So when you're thinking through that lens, the goal here is like, how can I want to do 2 things. Like I'm spending money on media, and I'm like expending, cash out of my business. And then I'm doing that with the hope of, getting cash back. Right. And so let's say at the moment you're at like, say a 5X. So you have like 20% of your margin as total invested into media spend. Right. And then let's say, let's just hypothetically say your product COGS is like 20% of your total margin or thereabouts. Right. So all in, right, COGS plus your acquisition cost is 40% of your margin, and then you have 60% remaining. And so if you look at that as a multiple, right, it's like double and half, right? It's like 40, you can fit 2, and then you can fit another half, right? So it's like that's the kind of multiple that you're at. And so the goal is to, especially if you want to put yourself in like hyper scale position, is like, how can I do 2 things? Your payback time is really quite short because you spend money on media and then you get it back quickly. That's fine. And then the next like game you want to like focus on unlocking is like, okay, so my payback cycle is quite short. I spend money on ads, I get it back in 3 days, whenever the customer kind of like conversion cycle is, cash conversion cycle. But then the real game is, okay, like I said at the event, we were workshopping through that CAC to gross profit lifetime value. If you've got a short payback cycle, and this is why businesses most of the time fail, is they have really long like payback cycles. I spend money, and think of it in this sense. Think of it, if you spent money on media and then you acquired a customer, and then the customer only paid you when the bag was delivered. Imagine if that was obscene, and so many companies run like that, right? But if we think about the converse of that, and we really extract it all the way back down to the other level, I want to have the shortest payback cycle. I want to have it in 1 day. On top of that, I want to take that payback cycle into a 2X, and I want to turn it into a 5X. Yeah, because like you do that, and it puts your company in this like insane, obscene accumulation of cash where it's like, I have so much surplus right, to expend back into growth, it becomes very difficult for you to even come close to like running out of money. You know what I mean? And this is what I'm saying in terms of that kind of like scalable model. We shorten that payback cycle. We increase the amount of gross profit per customer that you accumulate within 2 days' time. And you will literally be coming into the community being like, I don't know what to do with all the money I'm actually accumulating. Like, I can't even invest it into Meta fast enough. I can't keep up. And it's like, no one gets to those levels of problems because they solve things in the wrong sequence, if that makes sense. Right now, a lot of people would come in and be like, add costs, do this, new products, more complexity, hire a warehouse, do these things, and then their margins get squeezed. And so it's like you've got this unique opportunity where you've got, like I said, disproportionately kind of high ROAS. We can really exploit that as much as possible. See if you can increase that value of the payback cycle in terms of how much you're getting in that small amount of time. And like I said, you do that, your resource accumulation and your ability to go like, I've got 150 grand liquid in 2 months. I'm like, what the hell? Where do I put this? And it's like, then you turn into, which is the goal of being like a CEO of a company, resource allocation. You sit there and you've got all this liquid cash because you're not in this like completely like whirlwind of a hamster wheel machine, because you've built something really strong and scalable and you've got all this cash accumulating. And then you go, okay, so where could I invest that's going to bring the next biggest return? And you start using that massive, big brain power without the constraint of like worrying about death next week. I'm going to run out of money. I'm going to run out of money. Oh my goodness. I have no cash. And so many people get in that loop, and then they force more spend into media. They do big discounts on their offers. They start, just cannibalizing their margins, and then they just stay in this death spiral for years and years and years. And so it's like, protect yourself as much as possible, bolster that kind of situation there now, fatten that margin ridiculously by some of these kind of like mechanisms, upsells, referrals right then and there. And it's like, you will in 6 to 12 months be like a lethal CEO that can almost be like the chairman of the company and probably have resources to put a manager in and be like, I'm going to sit here. Okay, where's our next opportunity? Where's our next market? Where's our next product? Where's our next influencer? And you can sit there and just deploy like Warren Buffett resources into these companies to help your business to further grow. So that's how I just want you to start thinking in this moment right now. Really, really, really exciting times to be a company.
Yeah, it's huge. It's a lot to take in, actually. So, but it's so powerful. Yeah, I can't wait to implement some of these suggestions, these recommendations. Yeah,
very good.
No, it's amazing.
Very good. Very good. Now, I guess just like in closing or wrapping up the episode, Steve, when you think about the future for your brand, what excites you the most now? Like when you think about like the growth that you've had, and you think about like the entrepreneur that you've kind of begun to evolve into, if you kind of extrapolate that forward, like what excites you the most about the continuity of the growth and the continuity of the journey?
Well, so the why, which is pretty powerful, is obviously to get my wife out of nursing. So I'm looking forward to doing that and being able to work, alongside her and try and obviously see where this journey sort of takes us. I think I've said to you personally that I've found the hardest thing for me to do is actually think big. That's something that I work on. I actually need to start thinking a little bit bigger and start believing in what we're doing and really sort of, I think that starts with celebrating little moments, would you say? You celebrate moments and you start actually going, hey, wait a second, we're doing the right things here. We've put in the right work and the right ingredients. But, yeah, I think it's just seeing how confident that I can get. That's actually something that I'm really looking forward to doing, because as an army guy, if you imagine, in the army, you get trained to sort of think about the negative all the time. If we go into this battle, what's the consequences? What are the casualties going to be like? Especially as a logistics guy, you're thinking about all of the what ifs and the course of action. So I think for me, to be a little bit better as a business owner, I think I need to actually be a little bit more, just a little bit more positive, a little bit more protective of all the work that I've put in as well, not thinking about the negative.
Yeah, we celebrate the wins every single day. We celebrate wins that we have. Just so you know, in Ecom Capital, it's something that we do every single day. Literally is, what are the wins for the day? Like, you need to really look at that, because that will push you every single time, knowing that, hey, I have a win, and I actually am winning and building a business. So I want you to really do that, which is, what is your win for the day? And I mention this in my morning cuddle every single morning when I come. What is the thing that you're excited about? What's the win, let's say from yesterday? So I really would think that you need to celebrate more.
Oh, even just in the last 2 weeks, both you gentlemen have really implored us to do journaling. So I've started journaling just so I can try and record those wins, and make sure that I'm starting to track what's happening both in my day, my business, but in my mind, I think as well. Just having that belief that's my next step. But again, everything about this, it's not, you don't come into this journey and in the first 12 weeks of doing this, you become the expert. It's learning every single day, and just going on that journey is what I'm most excited about. Seeing how well it can work for my wife, and taking that business that little bit further. It was funny yesterday. I spoke to Heyman, and we were talking about. He said, "What's your goal? What would you like to sort of achieve?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, maybe like $10,000 a month."
I would say add a zero. I was like, hey, let's add
We need
another
to
zero
dream a little
there.
bigger. So.
Yeah. I think it's I mean, it's interesting because like it takes a bit of time for you to kind of like look at the track record of what you've done and be like, oh, I did that. You know what I mean? It takes a little while to sink in, but I think it's like I see it in two different lenses. Like, number one, I'd highly recommend you read the book 10x is easier than 2x if you haven't already. That's probably my all-time favorite book of thinking big, and the force multiplier that thinking big does to the actions that you take. It, by extension, limits the ability for you to do everything, and so you're forced to focus on the highest value, highest leverage, and it's explained in such a brilliant way during that book. I would actually attribute that book to turning my depression around, and turning around like a serious dark period of my life for about 2 years, reading that and just literally thinking into the future of like what could be versus what was happening right now, and how it was bad, and how I wasn't enjoying it, and how I was like trying to survive and make good what I've got versus like what could be in that amount of time. And it's a wildly powerful book. So I highly recommend that. And I think the other part to it is just like I've developed more and more and more confidence, and you probably the same, Hammond, over years and years and years of just like relentlessly, consistently doing the things that are required. Like, I think about it, everything just defers back to, can it be explained or proven in the law of physics? Is it against the law of physics that if I do certain inputs, I would get a certain output? It's like, explain it to me or prove it to me, the fact that if I force this energy and I force this work and I force this kind of like resources into a system and I get better and my skill compounds, it would be unreasonable for me to believe that like it would not eventually tip through, blow up, and just freaking explode. You know what I mean? And so like I always look at it through that lens, where I'm just like, if I continue with this, it's like the only option is just the time factor of like, how long is it going to need to take? And I've got a thick and stubborn enough head that I'm just not going to quit. So it's just like, let's just keep going. You know what I'm saying?
No, I love it. Yeah, just show up. But that's why I tried to take on a personal mantra right at the start of this, and it's like hustle. Like one of your early steps of training is really own your time, own your calendar. So I went through my calendar. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, or all the minutes of the day. But if there was a moment where it was like, actually, I don't know what I should fill in here, it's like I wrote hustle. Just just keep hustling. Just hustle. Just keep doing the work, So that's the takeaway.
Steve, it's super exciting seeing. The thing that excites me the most is like, cool, you're building a company, and you're really, really profitable in ads. Like, that's fantastic. But I think the changes that it has on you on a personal level, and the things that it does for you and your family, and the belief that it kind of puts in you for your future, that excites me so much more. Money's money, and it's cool when it's accumulating, and it's cool when you build a system. But I think the skill sets and the transformation that you've gone through is like, for me, what gives me the most satisfaction. You know what I mean? So I'm really blessed to have you in the community. I always enjoy, our conversations, and I'm really, really, really pumped to see the continued growth of the brand, and also the continued growth of like you as a founder, and help you to navigate through all of the challenges that I'm sure we will over the next 12 to 24 months. It's going to be fun.
I love it. And you're still a celebrity to me too, man.
Hopefully after a few more face-to-face meetings, that can lessen off a little bit.
What about when we finally get this guy over to Australia? That would be a big celebrity.
Don't get me started on that. I gotta send the plane over there to go and scoop him up and bring him over.
All right, I'll go help you. We'll manhandle him under the planes.
We have a lot of plans here. It's going to happen. But there's something that I want you to really keep in mind. It's like your business that you build. It feels like sometimes when you're building a business, it feels like you don't deserve it, or it just, you don't want to grow it more, or it feels like this is enough. Like 100K is good. It's like, I don't want to do more because it's just not me. I want you to really think about that abundance. And we talked about this yesterday, at a 0. Think about your life if it was a 10x life, not just the 10K or 12K, whatever amount. You need to think about, life of luxury. How can I do, you mentioned you want to support, let's say, your wife. How about I give her every day $10,000? Think about that possibility if you want to push more, which I think is pretty exciting when you think about a business that could do this, and it can. So you need to really think about bigger, and whatever you had in mind to provide to her, at a 0 or at 10. Make sense?
Yeah, no, appreciate it.
Pull up in the driveway in the Rolls Royce next year and be like, honey, I'm home. Here's your new car.
Keep telling Steve I'm going to take him to an island and we'll be sipping margaritas somewhere.
I'm sure he would love that. Now, dude, this has been great. I appreciate you sharing the story, and I appreciate you showing up and being an epic member of the community. Like I said, super pumped for the future, and keep doing great things, dude. Very, very excited for what's to come.
Love it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.